Today on the Big 3 in 30, Michigan prepares for the national championship game,
I don't think anyone expected this. I think we all hoped for it.
while UConn hopes it can take home another title.
We'll hear from Dan Hurley, but
And North Carolina hires Mike Malone.
I'll start with my thoughts. I love it.
This is the Big 3 in 30 College, the three biggest stories on campus from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 College starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Michigan is one win away from a national championship, and now all eyes turn to a title game matchup with UConn on the sport's biggest stage. Here's Isaiah Hull with Locked On Wolverines with the preview.
I don't think anyone expected this. I think we all hoped for it. I don't think we expected it. Just to see Michigan have this level of dominance. It's funny because some of the things they were like fine, right? Like they both had the same points in the paint. I kind of thought Michigan was going to outperform them there, but bench points, Michigan 25 to their 14. They've got a really deep bench, I mean, they had what? 8 players play 17 or 10 minutes or more at least. Most of them playing 17, 18, 38, all of the above. Michigan had 8. They had 8. Sorry, 8. Points off turnovers. That's, I think, and second chance points. I think that's where I'm impressed. Michigan had 11 offensive rebounds, 19 second chance points, and they managed to get 26 points off of turnovers. Now, Arizona had 18 offensive rebounds, so that was good, but they only had 12 second chance points. Like, great job defensive rebounding there. As far as they only got 2 fast break points, and they only got 12 points off of turnovers. These are things that I would not have counted on going into this. So I think now the challenge is, number one, get Yaks healthy as much as you can, right? I think that's key. Number one is Yaks, please be healthy, man. Number two, try to get all of this out of your mind, right? You gotta erase as much of this as possible and not look at it as, well, this was the de facto NCAA championship as people were calling it. It's not actually that. As much as people want to say it, like UConn took down Duke, even though Duke had a 19-point lead at one point. So you can't have a 19-point lead and feel comfortable. They already know what it takes to come back from that. So if you go into the second half with that, or you have 10 minutes left, like there was a point where Michigan was up by about that with, I think, about 12 minutes left. And UConn didn't quite make the full run, right? But like they kept on oscillating between, even when Michigan got it up to 30, 32, whatever it was that they had to, 30 was their top lead. They got it up to 30, and then Arizona quickly got it back down to about 19. And then Michigan then kind of just played around for a while and was like stretching it back to 24, goes back to 19, and didn't really get below that, or maybe it was 17. Michigan won by 18 points in this one. You can't afford to do that against UConn, especially with a head coach in Dan Hurley, who has had the Huskies win the championship twice now, right? You have to play start to finish. But right now we look at this and we say, all right, it's your 9th time. Michigan's made, counting the Fab Five, because I'm going to do that, they've made the Final Four 9 times. They've never lost in the round that they just played, but they have one national championship to speak of. Unlike the 2018, I will give you, if you're a rival fan, I will give you that Michigan did not have the hardest bracket to get to the national championship. And then they got steamrolled by Villanova. the last time they were there in 2018. I'm not going to talk about this year. Michigan's already been tested this year. Doesn't matter. Like, you can sit there, well, they played St. Louis and then they played Tennessee in the Elite Eight. Okay, well, Michigan also played in the Big Ten. They also played Duke in this regular season, right? Like, they have been tested. They've played some good teams. Gonzaga, a bunch of, they've beaten Purdue. They've beaten Illinois. They've beaten all of these teams that were right there, right? So it doesn't really matter what. Plus, they just beat Arizona, right? That's not, everyone went into this game. Heck, ESPN College Game Day had 3 analysts and all 3 picked Arizona to win, right? No, I'm not saying no one thought Michigan was a favorite, according to FanDuel, going into this game. I mean, but a lot of the analysts, right? Like, we talked about this last week. I had, what was it? 6 picks from national media. 2 went for Michigan, 4 went for Arizona, and Michigan beat them. But you can't rest on your laurels. You got to get the job done. And if Michigan does it, I mean, they're certainly capable, but you got to finish the job. This was just a masterclass.
This is Moving the Game Forward by Mazda. For those who know, the score never tells the whole story. Today's Moving the Game Forward moment goes to Trey Kaufman-Renn of the Purdue Boilermakers. He got the game-winning tip-in off a rebound in the Sweet 16 against Texas to get Purdue back to the Elite Eight. They'll go for their second Final Four in 3 seasons on Saturday. There's more to these players than the highlights. The early mornings, late night runs, constantly showing up for their squad on and off the court. The all-new Mazda CX-5 moves the same way, with more space to connect, a bold new design, and more intuitive technology, so you can stay connected to the road and every position you play. The all-new Mazda CX-5, more to move every side of you. Welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. With 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy, there's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number 1 pick for the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft, Confetti Craze, a delicious blend of rich and buttery, freshly baked confetti cake, smooth vanilla frosting, and a sprinkle of sweetness in every single sip. And of course, it still gives you that classic energy that you know from 5-Hour Energy with 0 sugar involved. Find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. UConn is back in the national title game again, and the Huskies have a chance to add another championship to an already remarkable run under Dan Hurley. Matt Shunvisky with Locked On UConn has his preview.
So Solo in a walking boot. What does this do for UConn if he's not available? Well, it would change the lineup significantly. Of course, you would have to plug somebody new in. Now, my take on this, the way Dan Hurley was talking, the way Solo Ball talked at the podium, because he did meet with the media just now, I feel like he's giving it a go. He's going to be all in to try to make it happen. He got banged up in the first half or early on in the win over Illinois on Saturday, and he was able to carry through the adrenaline. We'll hear from Dan Hurley, but Solo Ball talked about it, so let's just go straight to him and his comments on the situation.
It actually, I got through it with adrenaline, but it happened in the first half. I think my foot got caught with T. Reed and like with the screen, and it kind of just happened. But I mean, I'm feeling all right now. I'm just leaving it up to the medical staff, and I'm doing everything I can to prepare for tomorrow. Yeah, I'm just leaving it up to the medical staff, kind of like I said before, just doing everything I can to prepare for tomorrow. Well, I don't think it's too much added to it. Just being in the national championship game and just going to prepare the exact same way we've prepared all season. So just a little bump in the road, but I mean, still going to play.
Midway. So you heard it from Solo Ball directly. I'm still going to try to play. I'm still going to play. I'm going to play in like I'm playing. I'm going to prepare like I'm playing. And you saw him throughout the rest of the game. The second half was that breakaway dunk where he threw it down. And his ankle looked pretty okay, right? So I'm guessing he's in their boot for precautionary reasons. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical staff. That's my interpretation of the situation. And I don't think Dan Hurley would have been so forthcoming about things and Solo Ball probably would not be at the podium as well if it was such a serious injury that he was not going to be available for tomorrow. So here's what Dan Hurley said. He made it a comment to say, hey, you're going to see Solo Ball in a boot. This is the situation. This is what's happened. I don't think it's a major deal. I do. I'm not informed on this. I expect Solo Ball to be in uniform tomorrow, just based on how he talked about it, how Silas Demery Jr. talked about it as well at the podium, and also how Dan Hurley talked about it, which you'll hear about from Dan Hurley right now.
Solo, you'll see him, he's in a boot, took some type of a foot sprain, so won't participate in anything today, and see how he's feeling tomorrow. So you'll see the boot. Yeah, Solo just sprained a foot early in the game, so he's able to finish the game. He won't participate today. I think that, we'll see whether this turns into, it's going to be tough to get an MRI on Easter, on a Sunday. I don't know what the, hospitals are like on Indiana, but what's that? Hospitals stay open.
So listen, talking about an injury so openly like this, I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be ready to go, and I'm preparing from a coverage standpoint that Solo Ball is going to be there. And I think this UConn team is going to be preparing the same way. Hearing Silas Demery Jr. talk about, hey, this is the national championship, we're going to be ready to go, just speaks to me that this team will have full availability. Now, if they don't, it's once again one of those, hey, this team's what, 34-5, 34-5, 39 games in. Only 5 losses. They've only had their top 9 guys available for 18 net games now. We talked about that on this show. So it would just be another in a long list of games where they would not be at full strength. But again, I expect Solo Ball to be in the lineup. So that was the highlight coming out of, that was the newsmaker coming out of today's press conference at the podium. Players and head coach Dan Hurley. And UConn's entering this game as an underdog. They've been an underdog, but have they really been an underdog? Illinois heading in, I didn't see it as an underdog situation. Illinois was slightly favored, but more so it was the national prognosticators that were picking against UConn, despite everything saying UConn. We talked about it. We're not going to rehash it here. But I will highlight a few things because Dan Hurley spoke to the matchup with Michigan and the situation of entering as a dog and an expected favorite like Michigan is. And to his credit, Dan Hurley managing the message, not giving out free ammo for opponents. There were no comments such as, we're not taking them seriously, or we don't get extra motivation by going up against the likes of Michigan. There was none of that. There was nothing like that. There was no comments like Illinois made or the Illinois media made about entering this game and disrespecting opponents or anything of that nature. Dan Hurley was very straight up, sharing his thoughts about how good this Michigan team is. And we're going to get to some of those additional comments in the final segment in terms of Dan Hurley's view of Michigan. Because I see a lot of parallels and similarities with how I'm looking at this game that Dan Hurley's looking at in terms of how good this Michigan team is, how UConn matches up, what needs to go right. Dan Hurley even talked about a few additional things that I didn't call out last night that would need to go right because they are up against a very strong team. Some say a behemoth. Some say a dominant team. But it's not an unbeatable team. Every game, and Dan Hurley talked about this as well, it's not a 7-game series. This is a game 7, everything on the line, throw all the cards in the middle of the table. Whoever wins takes it all. That's what's transpiring. And I think him acknowledging that this not being a 7-game series speaks to what he thinks about Michigan. But he also spoke at length about UConn being the underdog. And here's Dan Hurley at the podium on just that.
Yeah, I don't, you go through your process of preparation at this point. There's, every team has some vulnerabilities, none of, no teams are perfect. Again, it's not we're not playing a best of 11 or a best of 7, or it's we've got both teams have a short turnaround. We basically going to get probably 2 times on the court to walk through some things, bunches to try to prepare to take away the strengths of each team, and it's going to come down to who plays better on Monday night. But the underdog, I don't know that we necessarily feel like a huge underdog. Obviously, we acknowledge Michigan's greatness, and the team that they are. But we're a 34-win team coming into the game tomorrow night.
I'm going to play another comment from Dan Hurley on being an underdog, but what I will say is that comment there, because that was the second comment on the underdog situation. His first comment, we're going to play in a sec, but this second comment kind of speaks to a little confidence that, hey, we've won 34 games here. Don't forget about that, because this team has performed. Now, here's Dan Hurley's comment on entering even further as an underdog.
In this game, not at all, because when you get down to winner take all at this point, there's just that something that you probably doesn't even register. It's just like preparation, game plan, make sure the guy you're getting is healthy and as all the recovery, and just really, you don't have to be the best team. You don't have to have the best season to win this tournament. These are all one game 7, single game elimination. There's been plenty of times in the history of this tournament where the best team hasn't won it. You just got to be better for one night. And obviously, for us, we need to play the game a certain type of way. We obviously can't get into a certain type of game with Michigan. They're, incredibly dominant team, incredibly well coached, talent up and down the roster, physically imposing, all those things. So, the good thing for us, it's not a 7-game series. Just got to play one game on Monday night.
Once again, there was no Dan Hurley giving any bulletin board material to Michigan. It was, Michigan's a great team. We're going to have to play a certain way to be able to compete with them. There was no, they haven't seen us before, or they don't have our experience, or we know how to win in the national championship, or any of that. Dan Hurley is not giving any bulletin board material to Dusty May and the Michigan Wolverines. Now, even with that, Dan Hurley's not even using UConn as being an underdog in this motivation for the national championship, because you just heard him walk through it. There's so much to focus on, so much that they need to do to be able to compete and have a chance to win this game tonight. And I think that speaks to what Dan Hurley thinks about this matchup going in, that they're going to have to play perfectly. They're going to have to play very well. Maybe not perfectly. No team is perfect. No team has to play perfect to win a game. They're going to have to play very well and do the things that we've talked about already leading into this game, which we're going to talk about in the final segment, because he's going to get into that. He talked about some of the things that they're going to have to do to overcome being this, I think it's 7.5-point underdog. So what are those things? We talked about them leading into the Illinois game. All that carries in. All that carries forward. There's additional things that this team is going to have to do. We're going to talk about it. You're going to need to see shots go down.
What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. This episode is brought to you by Supply House. You wouldn't show up on game day without a plan, and you wouldn't show up to a job without the right parts. That's why putting Supply House in your starting lineup is always the right call. Here are the stats. 300,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products. 500 tried and true brands, and 90% of the country is in the 1 to 2 day delivery zone. Need a last minute coupling, a compressor, a press tool? They've got it, and they'll get it to you quickly. They are clutch. If you're a pro in the trades, you can join the MVP of rewards programs and become a trade master. Pros get exclusive member-only pricing, priority shipping, industry-leading customer service, and it's all absolutely free. Visit supplyhouse.com/TM to learn more about becoming a trade master. Use promo code SH5College for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com, promo code SH5College. Supply House, real people, real service. In Chapel Hill, North Carolina has made a move and hired Mike Malone, giving the Tar Heels an NBA champion coach to lead the program into a new era. Here's Isaac Shade with his thoughts on Locked On Tar Heels.
I'll start with my thoughts. I love it. Interestingly, I know this name, Mike Malone. Some of you, I think I put in the poll, do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Or who's Mike Malone? He's actually a name that I had said speculatively multiple times across these last 2 weeks since Carolina fired Hubert Davis, because he does have some connection to Carolina. His daughter, Bridget, is a sophomore volleyball player for the Tar Heels. Coach Malone, Post Malone, that all it goes together. Coach Malone had been let go by the Nuggets after the 24-25 season. He had taken this past year not coaching, and so he was around the team a lot this past season, was at practice multiple times. Coach Davis and the staff brought him in. I know sometimes people are like, well, ooh, I can't talk about other podcasts. Bump that, man. I want to celebrate others. On the Carolina Insider podcast that Jones Angel and Adam Lucas do, they had Coach Malone in for an interview. I believe it was back in like mid-October. I tweeted about it, so you can go check that out. It's a great interview. What's funny is at that time, I remember thinking, I tell you what, I remember I was driving in my car and I thought, if Carolina ever fires Coach Davis or Coach Davis retires or moves on, Mike Malone is somebody I would love for Carolina to go after. And that's part of why this is not all that out of left field. Yes, it is shocking because maybe his name hasn't been talked about in specificity at the same level as Billy Donovan or Dusty May or Tommy Lloyd. It's always been there kind of lurking for me. But what's funny is anytime I've talked about him in these past couple of weeks, I've just done so essentially speculatively, because it was like, well, there's no news from Carolina about it. But you know how Carolina does their business, right? It's close to the vest. We're not going to let out a lot of times what we're doing or how we're moving or anything like that. So a lot of it is speculation from anyone and everyone. And that's how this comes to be. But I tell you what, man, this thing has moved quickly. It's interesting because Matt Norlander reported earlier or this afternoon on Monday afternoon that he was told that Carolina gave Iowa coach Ben McCollum a chance to interview. He declined to do so, and the school quickly pivoted to Mike Malone, and here we go. He's going to be the guy. Now, of course, this has not yet, unless it's happened in the last couple minutes, I guess I should keep refreshing to see, but the school has not yet officially announced it, and so we wait for that. But all the good sources that we should and do trust have reported this, and so it's safe to go with it. Here's a couple things for me. You think about with Tommy Lloyd or another college coach or a sitting NBA coach, you would have to have all this money for a buyout, right? Like with Tommy Lloyd, we're talking $9 million. This is a guy who doesn't have a current job. So there's no buyout necessary. You can use that money, and we'll see what the terms of his contract are when it's officially announced. You can use that money for Coach Malone. You can use it for other basketball needs as well. Hiring high-level assistants, hiring a high-level GM, whatever that is and whoever that looks like. So that's great news for Carolina. No buyout needed. I think a lot of people are going to worry that Coach Malone has never been a head coach at the Division I level. He was an assistant. I'll talk about his bio in a little bit. But I would like to remind you, if you're concerned about recruiting or other things like that, it's wholeheartedly different right now. You do not have to be a classic recruiter that knows all the AAU coaches you got to talk to and all that. What you got to have now is a bag. And you got to have a pedigree that parents and coaches and agents can trust. Well, guess what Mike Malone has? Every single ounce of that. One thing I am curious to see, speaking of dynamics, as we had said, Coach Malone had been in and around and with the team and the staff this past season, meaning he's got relationship with Coach Davis. He's got relationship with all 5 of the assistants, right? And Eric Coots and others. And so that is really interesting here. And we'll see, like, does Coach Davis feel, I don't know. And ultimately that doesn't, you hate to say it this way, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what Coach Davis thinks, because Carolina, Bubba Cunningham, Steve Newmark, the chancellor, they've all got to do what's best for the program in the institution. And if Mike Malone is the man they think is set to do that, then there you go. Here's another couple things that are initial reactions to why I love this. With Dusty May, for example, he was never, if we're being honest, he was never really a true legit candidate. It was just somebody you've got to go out and look at. But he's somebody that it sounds like from a lot of reporting kind of is comfortable being number 2, meaning at Michigan, football is always going to be number 1 and the men's basketball coach will be number 2. At North Carolina, head basketball coach, with all due respect to Bill Belichick, is always going to be the guy. All due respect to Coach Forbes and Courtney Banghart and all the other great coaches at Carolina, the men's basketball coach for the University of North Carolina Tar Heels is going to be number 1. And in Mike Malone, you've got a guy who will not shy away from that spotlight, because he is an NBA champion coach at the highest level of basketball that there is. So yes, he does not have Billy Donovan's NCAA championships, but the dude has won a championship in the biggest basketball league in the entire world, the NBA. You've got a man in Mike Malone who can handle every bit of the spotlight, every bit of the fishbowl, every bit of the pressure cooker that comes along with being named Mike Malone, head coach, University of North Carolina. He's going to be ready for that. You've got a head coach in Mike Malone. You know, there had been concern about, I mentioned Ben McCollum's name a second ago, or some of these other coaches that would have been in the next level of search that maybe haven't done it yet, in terms of like a Mark Byington. I would have loved Mark Byington as North Carolina's head coach, but he does not have the championship pedigree, even at the collegiate level, that Mike Malone has. Mike Malone has over 500 NBA wins to his resume. Mike Malone has an NBA championship to his resume. And you know what, 12 years as a head coach in the NBA? You've got the pedigree that you wanted. Sure, maybe it's not at the NCAA level, but it's at the NBA level. And that level of cachet and pedigree is incredible. Now, another thing I want to say before we take our first break is it's funny that, you know, on Friday, there was the news of Tommy Lloyd saying, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to re-up at Arizona. On Sunday was Dusty May's turn. On Easter Sunday, I'm trying to celebrate the risen Lord, and I got to deal with with Dusty May. But seriously, there was really never any assumption that was going to be a thing, other than you have to go get it. But then I say all that to say, then all the reporting turned to, okay, so, and for me as well, now you hone in on Billy Donovan. You target Billy Donovan, but the problem is we sit here Monday at 3:26 Eastern time. The transfer portal opens now in, let's do math, whatever, like 8.5 hours or something like that. And if you're waiting on Billy Donovan till next Sunday at the earliest, and oh, by the way, he might not have even taken the job even then. You know what I mean? And by that point, who knows how many guys you've lost to the portal, which right now that's Jaden Young and that's Isaiah Dennis. Although Isaiah Dennis, when he announced it yesterday, said, but I'm doing it basically to keep my options open and I could come back. We'll talk about retainment of roster in a little bit here. But now Carolina said, we don't have to wait to do that. We don't have to wait to see if guys are going to get into the portal. No, now you have a chance immediately to say, look, hey, Coach Malone's our guy. We're going to start having conversations about that, whether it's current, any of that. Carolina is not waiting. And while I was all aboard the Billy Donovan train, I think it would have been a great hire. You now do not have to wait on that.
That's all for today's Big 3 and 30 College. If you follow pro basketball or football, the Big 3 and 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and NFL going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 and 30 NBA or the Big 3 and 30 NFL wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 and 30 College.